Hello and welcome to the Construct Cast. I'm your host, James Darian. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Now, for today's podcast topic, I wanted to discuss a bit of cancel culture and MeToo a bit. Now, this is mostly spurred on by me seeing yet another creator that I've been following for some years being accused of a Me Too scenario. And I want to discuss what this really means for social situations, dating, and the climate of human interaction in general. Excuse me if I have to pause a few times during this recording. My sister's visiting. She brought her cats, and I'm allergic, so of course I'm gonna need to pause a little bit every now and then. But to get on with it, it is very dangerous, I believe, what has happened with the Me Too movement. Women coming forward and discussing accusations of people who have attacked them, being forward about events of sexual harassment and assault, I have zero problem with that. I think that is probably the best thing a woman could do, is come forward about such events of harassment and negativity that they are subject to. However, it seems like it's going far beyond just coming forward, because they are wanting to take action without taking any legal action, which means they are trying people in a court of public appeal. The dangerous thing about this is that it creates a precedent where anyone can be tried at any time with evidence given by one side, and honestly, no rebuttal seems to affect the situation in the least. There's nothing that someone can do to convince someone that they're not a rapist when they've already let themselves be convinced that they are a rapist. And the danger to this goes far beyond just a single personal interaction. This goes beyond the people who it happens for, but it puts everyone at risk, at least everyone who is male in this case, at risk. So, say you have a wife or girlfriend who likes for you to be a bit rough in the bedroom, to put it mildly. Let's say she really just enjoys when you take control as the man. Now, what happens when maybe you're sending texts talking about it, and then later you break up with her and she doesn't take it so well? Well, suddenly she has all this evidence of you being so rough and tough with her, and, well, she can go and tell a friend, or she can post about it online, and she can twist it however she wants. Regardless of if it was something that she wanted at the time, or anything of that nature, it doesn't matter. Suddenly, because you've broken up with her, it was a negative experience, and she can say, oh, that wasn't some fantasy, that wasn't some fun interaction, that was an assault, that was a rape, that was something terrible that he did to me, and I will never forgive him for it. That's kind of the area we're living in, and that is a dangerous place to be a man. It puts the risk of getting into a relationship in the modern era so tilted against men that I would honestly not be surprised to see many men just give up on women altogether. There is lots of evidence that Marxists and followers of those types of belief want to break down the the family unit, the traditional family unit. There are many quotes and many declarations of such things, even from, you can see it in Black Lives Matters protests from their leaders and the such, that getting rid of the home family, getting rid of the traditional family unit is a key component to their manifesto, to their goals. And creating this kind of environment, they may have already succeeded. That's what I'm scared of. Because, sure, maybe it won't destroy the relationships for people who are in happy and good relationships. But what about younger men and people who are coming of age now and want to get into relationships? Even myself, in my relationship, I sometimes have to wonder, oh man, if something were to go wrong and I were to break up with her, my girlfriend would have so many messages, so many pictures, maybe even some videos of interactions between us that, without the full context, could show me to be some sort of monster, could be twisted to make me come off as some sort of monster who is very forceful in sexual ways or something like that. And it honestly would not surprise me to see that type of stuff happen if things were to go south for us, because it's happened so much everywhere. Now, I know my girlfriend is listening to this. Hi, honey. And I don't believe you would ever do this to me. But the mere fact that she could, that is not something that I think anyone wants hanging over them in a relationship. I feel like, I don't know, it almost feels like there is something hanging over me, just waiting to drop. And I don't know if, I can believe all I want that my girlfriend would never drop it even if we broke up. But all she has to do is snip the rope and the axe comes dropping down. That is such a terrifying thought. And it's something that men almost exclusively have to deal with in this modern day and age. We already have court systems that tend to favor women. If you look at custody cases, anything with family courts, you'll see that they tend to favor the women in these situations far more often than they do men. And this is set off of precedent from history where women weren't working the way they are now. Women were at home, they were taking care of kids. So if you had kids and you got a divorce, your woman didn't have any work experience. She couldn't take care of herself. So alimony and giving her custody made sense because all she was doing was taking care of the kids for the most part. Now, in a modern age, women work a lot, and there is that imbalance still there in place for a precedent that no longer exists. So you can see that there are many historical aspects of our institutions that already favor women, and now here is a giant threat over every single guy who wants to get into a new relationship. I worry because of this that the other side has already won. It's clear that I am not a Marxist. I am not interested in that kind of a society or that kind of a future for myself or my family. I want to have a family. I want to have kids. And I know my girlfriend wants to have lots of kids. And I am excited for what she and I have. But because of what's happened in modern times, I feel almost like our relationship, the relationship I have with her, as close as it is, I feel like there is a poison infecting it just from the sheer risk of what happens to so many other people, so many other good men being labeled as anything that could disrupt them or anything that could really be used against them from someone who, at least at one point, is claiming to be so supportive and so close to them. Someone who, I mean, you don't date someone generally without the concept that one day you could marry this person. So men now who go into dating believing, hey, I could be with this person forever. There's an implicit trust in that when a man asks a woman out and chooses to be in a union, in a relationship with them. There is a trust there. And now there is a poison in our society that is toxifying every single relationship out there. It is so scary to know that any woman could so easily pull that trigger. And even without evidence, they could pull that trigger. They don't need to show text. Even if they gave something without context, they don't need to do that. They could easily just make a claim, and there will be a response, because that's the way society is these days. Society is very emotionally driven. And I don't know how it became this way, but I mean, we could analyze that one day. But for now, we can just say, even if we don't know how it got this way, we can see that it is this way. It's being driven even more by media and by celebrities and all these different players trying to leave this impression. All the MeToo stuff here, this and that. I mean, we saw what happened at the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. We saw how much these people just did not care whether or not there was evidence for what happened between Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh. It's scary, man. It is scary, and this can have some serious implications for our entire society going into the future. So, what do I intend to do about this? Well, personally, I'm sticking things out with my girlfriend. I love her. I think we've got a good thing going, and I try to be open and honest with her about these types of risks and these kinds of things that are happening in society. Honestly, worst case, I move to a different country where this risk isn't there. But honestly, I feel like that would be very bad. I don't know. That's, to an extent, that's a joke. But at the same time, like, that's actually a thing that guys almost have to consider these days if they want to be able to be in a relationship and feel like, hey, there isn't a giant axe hanging over our head the entire time. But really, what can I do as an individual? Not much. I can talk to people, and whenever I see someone going through one of these Me Too assaults, and there is clear evidence that they did not do it, or there is a lack of evidence that they did do it. I mean, the mere fact that these women are not bringing these men to court should be evidence that there is something not all there. They are lacking proving evidence. And yet, still, the mob goes for these men and try to cancel them, take their jobs, take their money, take whatever they can from them, destroy their lives. It's not good. It's really not good. And I want to focus on this. I could also bring up other aspects of cancel culture, like Papa John's getting fired for telling the HR staff that they essentially need to watch out for negative words and racial slurs, and then saying, hey, these are the racial slurs we need to watch out for, and listing them off. He does that. He gets kicked out from his own company. That's terrible. That's insane. He's literally trying to support an inclusive agenda and got fired for it. He got his life taken from him. He got his company that he built from the ground up taken from him. That is horrifying. And this can happen from these types of situations as well. That can happen from these relationship changes too. It is absolutely horrifying to be a man in the modern age, which is a very ironic situation because constantly the media is feeding us patriarchy this, patriarchy that. We've been in a matriarchy for decades at this point. Just look at our school systems. Just look at the way things are designed. Would HR be as... We are in an HR society. That's one of the ways I put it earlier when discussing this with my family. I was saying, we live in an HR society. Everyone is kind of collectively the HR for the world. Whenever the human resources, whenever there's an issue, just like, oh, you go post about it online and you can get a reaction and you can find out who's the good, who's the villain. And there can be almost divine punishment coming from whoever. That's how these things are treated. And it is dangerous. So what I do is I talk to my girl about it, honestly. I mean, I think men's rights, I'm not a men's rights activist, and maybe I should be. Because the more I see this type of stuff, the scarier it gets for me, and the more worried I get for my own future kids. The more worried I get for even some of my cousins, and I don't even have that many cousins that I like. Okay, that's a bit of a mean joke, but we all have family that we don't like. But like, we have people, we see the younger generation, and there's good, ample reason to be scared for a lot of them. And there's good reason to be scared about our society when relationships aren't being formed properly. When people can't have some amount of security in relationships with the people they're supposed to be closest with, that is whack. Okay, excuse me for my phrasing, but it's really crazy when people cannot feel secure with the person they're supposed to feel the most secure with. That the risk of hurting someone emotionally could come back and have a real world, physical, and life-altering destruction to you for something that may just be a temporary emotional pain for someone else. That's cruel. I mean, when you agree to date someone, you're agreeing that we will take a risk on loving each other, and we want to figure out if our union is going to work. And maybe it doesn't, but that's a risk. You open your heart to see if they can meld together. Meld, whatever. But you open your heart to see if, hey, do our hearts connect? Do we have this? And I think that this whole culture that has manifested is like a brick wall between a way, and you need to just pound at it to get through. And honestly, no guy can be 100% certain that unless a guy breaks up with a woman and she doesn't do this, can he feel 100% certain that she's not going to do this? And I honestly feel like the amount of permanent damage that this can do, it's going to make guys just avoid women like the plague. I think it already is. That's why you have the MGTOW movement. That's why you have all of this stuff going on. And it's really crazy. It really is. But I think I went off on a tangent there again and kind of looped back around. So, what am I going to do? What do I recommend everyone else does? Aside from talking to your significant other, talking to the women in your life, not just the person you're dating, but talk to your parents, talk to your sisters, talk to your friends. You definitely want to talk to everyone about this and let them know, hey, this is something that scares men. And it doesn't just scare men because, every man is a rapist. No, it scares men because good men can easily be conflated as being a rapist, and a racist, honestly. But that's another topic. But it's so devastating, and it's really something that we need to talk about. And we need to be aware that the men being accused in these situations are just as much the victims as the women are claiming to be. I think when people say, believe the victim, I do believe the victim. I believe the men who are being accused are not getting their fair shake. They're not getting their chance in court or in the public space to say, hey, I didn't do this. Hey, here is evidence that I didn't do this. Spreading word and letting people know that the men are just as much victims in this situation and the risk that we are facing. That is one of the utmost topics that need to be brought up because it gets ignored. It gets ignored a lot. Men really are, in a way, men are at society's heel. We are, I don't like using we, I don't like collective ideas like this, but from the way all of these topics are being approached, it's the only way you can really respond to it, is to say, okay, from the accuser's perspective, there is a man-woman dynamic here. Men are rapists, women are victims. And it always turns out this way. I mean, heck, whenever I even say to my mom, like, maybe you shouldn't tell me about some of your childhood traumas because they're negatively affecting me. Like it can be like hurtful to my psychology to hear some of the things that she needs to talk about. That, like, if I were to say something like that to my mom, then she would turn to me and say, yes, I am terrible. I'm sorry for trying to be open and having a relationship with you. I'm awful. Like, it's a self-villainization in a way that also makes the villain the victim. I mean, that may not be a great example. It's not exactly a real example from me. I mean, I have had interactions with my mom that have gone in a way where, even as a conservative woman, she has turned it to be a victimization narrative. And that's the thing that gets to me, that even women who are conservative, even older conservatives, tend to still have this, oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is, woe is. I'm actually not sure how to say that now that I think about it. But they have this attitude that can be often very negative, and it's defeatist in a way. And again, this also may just be the personality of some of the women who I've had to deal with, but and maybe that's because of my personality, that I tend to find women who have these types of personalities. But I just want to give a guy's perspective on some of this. Like, it can be hard to broach a lot of topics because I'm just going to come out and say, like, people talk about toxic masculinity. Toxic femininity turns everything into an emotional, accusatory form of dialogue. It removes any sense of hard logic and just puts things on the emotional. Just like toxic masculinity, like, there's stoicism, and then there's just like unfeeling and kind of sociopathic, I guess. I don't know. I try to not get too involved in that type of stuff, but I feel like I need to bring it up in this to sort of point out, like, hey, we're only having one side of the conversation right now. That's the big thing right now. It's the conversation is on one side. But yeah, I mean, these are just some random thoughts for me. I'm a bit. This is not my typical logical analysis, and this is, I mean, it is a logical analysis, but it's more of like, this is my type of emotional reaction to stuff, because I've seen yet another person go through an attempt to cancel them. And he seems to be pushing through it. He's given his side. He gave his testimony. He didn't even do the typical, like, I didn't want to have this conversation, I didn't want to make this video type of thing when he talked about it. He just went straight into giving his testimony and his points and nailing at it. He's like, hey, here are my faults. This is what I did wrong. But, like, I didn't rape this girl. And here's all the text that she's giving without context. Here's the full context to them. Here's, like, the before, the after. And I hate when I see this kind of stuff, man. I hate it, because for me, I am just so scared for the kids I have one day. I want to have just a wonderful relationship with my girlfriend that lasts forever and never has to worry about this kind of acts over our relationship, because it just feels like there's an intruder trying to poison our relationship. That's what it feels like when we're in this kind of social climate. I don't want that. I don't think my girlfriend deserves for me to have that kind of an attitude, and I don't want to have this type of attitude. And for the most part, I think she and I are good. I don't dwell on this type of stuff when I'm with her. I'm always very happy when I'm with her. But then whenever I see this stuff, I'm just like, oh dang. Like, if things went south between her and me, what would happen to me? What could she do with a single online post? It's like, no, she won't do that. But I doubt any of these guys thought that their exes would do it too. And that's the real killer. I trust my judgment to be better than theirs, but is it? Is it really? Who knows? But I just hope things get better. I hope things get better, and I'm going to work towards making things better. I'm going to keep making all my posts about all these conversation topics, whether they're comfortable or not to have. I'm going to keep making these posts and having these conversations and working towards making a world where when my kids are my age, they can be happy and confident and feel like, yeah, I know what's going on with the world. I know what's going on with my relationships, and I know how to succeed, and I don't feel like I am walking on a thread every moment of my life. But who knows? Maybe I'll just have a bunch of daughters, and then I won't have to worry about this at all. I'll have other things to worry about then. But that's all from me on this one. If you have anything to say, I would love to hear it below. I'm always interested in hearing other opinions and other thoughts and getting more deep conversation out of this stuff. This is I like to keep these podcasts spur of the moment, very visceral for the most part. So let me know what you all think and have a good one. I will see you all on Sunday. Bye-bye.